Welcome everybody to our 8th presentation. Today we will be talking about the importance of soaking, about tools and how to sharpen your knives. The picture you're seeing here is really put on for your entertainment and for no other reason. Please do not try this with your horse. This is not the way to soak horses. I can just envision how something startles this horse, and he jumps and gets his hind foot caught between the handle and the bucket and then freaks totally out because now something's biting him in the foot. So soaking is important, but it has to be done the right way. Let's talk a little bit about why soaking is so important. You remember that from the anatomy lectures that the horn tubules are connected with soft connective horn. And this soft connective horn is very dependent on moisture. And this moisture has to come in part from inside the body. That means your horse has to be well hydrated at all times. It also has to come from the outside. And not only is the soft connective horn very dependent on water, but also the periopal and the white line. If you have a horse that is not soaked at all and you live in a very dry climate, chances are you will always have a sunken white line or receding white line. And no matter how you bevel the outside of the hoof wall, it just doesn't close because there's just not enough moisture in the white line. So when we look at horses in nature, the way they have to drink is they have to go every day into water. And since their legs are so long and their necks are not as long as those of a giraffe, even so everything is in proportion, they have to stand mainly in water in order to drink. And horses do not in nature avoid going into water. They actually play in water, and they are in general rather fond of water. There's also horses that live in very wet environments. The horses of the Camargue, which is the region of the Rhone Delta in France, live at least 6 months of the year when flooding occurs in that area in super wet conditions, eating grass, standing in the water because there's water everywhere. And their hoof capsules do not suffer from this. I am sure that you have heard in the past from farriers that water is very detrimental to the hoof capsules. I just heard it recently again from Rick Redden, who said it was utterly foolish to soak a hoof, but he didn't say why, unfortunately, and I have no intention of asking him. But in farriery, this is a little bit different because the water seeps between the shoe and the horn, and not only between the shoe and the horn, but also between the nail and the horn. And then you get horn rot around the nail because the horn reacts with the water now with the metal. It doesn't do that without the metal. There is no reaction to water. So then the shoe becomes loose because the nail becomes loose, and that's what farriers don't want. So, but we are not talking about short horses, we're talking about barefoot horses. And barefoot horses should be in some kind of water every day. May this be because they have a natural water source. May this be because you soak them. These horses here are obviously, actually they're mules, very lucky that they can walk around and play in the water and drink that way as well. Not all horses are like this, and for people that don't have their own pond or stream, they can build something like we have built. This is in our barn. We have built soaking stands. These are concrete pans with a drain, and the horses go in there when they get fed and stand in there for about 20 to 30 minutes. We can close them in from the back, so that we did this when we had the barn extremely full, because as soon as the first one went out, all the others would follow regardless if they were finished with their food or not, because the herd instinct is bigger than the eating instinct. And so we closed them off, and you can leave them in basically as long as you want to. Horses are usually done with their food in about 20 minutes, and when everybody was done, we just walked across the back and opened it again and let them out. They also know in a very short time which stall is theirs, and they just go there to eat. This is a fairly simple affair. However, I have to admit it's not cheap to get this built. Even if you build it yourself, it's not cheap. Here is another solution. If you have a smaller operation, just one or two horses, this is Susan Hedenberg's foot spa in Virginia. Here on the right side you see a gate which can be closed. She just left it open for the picture, which can be closed so that the horse is then totally locked in. And stands in the water, can eat hay here in the front. I think this is very nice for the horse, and he can soak. If you build a hoof spa, make sure that it is deep enough that the water can be at least 4 inches high in it, so that the water goes over the coronet band to soak the horse from the top, not just from the bottom. This is our hoof spa we have built in the beginning. We thought this would be a good way to do this, and that way we could soak our horses. It's big enough. It's 12 by 12 feet. It was a concrete pad, and then we built a wall onto it on top. And here in the front is a drain. I have another picture of the drain. Because it is 12 by 12 feet, you can put 2 horses in that get along with each other, not a problem. This is a different view, just when it was built new. Later on we put here in the front, you will see this in the next few pictures, we put a hay feeder in, so that the horses could eat while they were standing here and wouldn't be bored. Here you see the drain. It is very important that you have a little bit slope in every foot spa, and that you also have a big enough drain that the water goes out easily and that you can hose it out easily. Inevitably, this water will get dirty. They get a little bit excited in this sometimes. And here you see a little bit later how the horse can eat out of the hay feeder while it's standing in the water. And that kept everything calm and collected. This is what we first built when we didn't know exactly how we would do this. The beginning times of natural hoof care. This is a 4x8 plywood board, and we nailed 4 landscaping timbers on top, then put a carpet in the bottom so that the horse wouldn't step through the pond liner, and covered the whole contraption with a pond liner. It was a little bit awkward to empty. As you can see, the water splashes out in every direction and does not go over the coronet band as we really want to have it. It's by far not ideal. And then we put 2 jump standard wing standards on so that the horse wouldn't take the hind legs out of the spa. He didn't care, he just pushed the wing standards over and stepped out of it anyway, so it is by far not ideal. This is the spa of Jerry and Sharon Foster here in South Carolina. They also got full hog into the barefoot movement and built a pristine hoof spa, very nicely done. And it also, I trimmed there for quite a long time, and it always was clean regardless of the fact that they religiously soaked horses. So they are very meticulous people, and this one also can hold 2 compatible horses. So this whole soaking is a big deal, and these are so kind of the possibilities that we have. And this here is the poor man's hoof spa. These are Davis boots. They come in different sizes. Size 0 starts, which is the smallest one, and then they have 1, 2, and 3. 2 is also known as a large, which fits usually an average horse. But they have measurements on every website that sells them, and please read those measurements. The cheapest ones that I have found are at Jeffers Vet Supply in Alabama. They are mail order company, and they sell them for around $20 a piece. So for $80 you have your own private foot spa. This is important for people that only have 1 horse and bored maybe. You can easily, while you're grooming your horse or after you rode your horse, just pull these boots on, pour some water in, and soak them for 20 minutes. Now, there are some disclaimers about this. Yvonne Wells wrote an article about this quite a while ago, that in Arizona, in very dry, arid climate, that doesn't work. If you soak the hoof only for 20 minutes, it doesn't do anything but aggravate it. As soon as you take the foot out of the water and put the horse out again, it dries the hoof out immediately. And the 20 minutes didn't do enough to penetrate anything. So they say you have to soak in very dry climates, you have to soak longer, and for that reason then they don't soak as often. So 2-3 times a week, 2 to 4 hours does a better job than every day 20 minutes. You have to play around a little bit for that, but you will see a definite difference in your horse's hoof. The hoof will be more elastic and will therefore be a better shock absorber. Another thing that soaking definitely facilitates is decontraction combined with the right trim. This is definitely something that you have to consider. Where I had a couple of horses here that we put in soaking boots with very warm water and then walked them, right, with the water in the soaking boots to decontract the hoof, and that really, really worked. You have to have the right trim on the hoof, and you have to have warm water in the boot, and that requires that after a little while you, first of all, the water sloshes out of the boots. There's no question about this. If the horse doesn't stand still, but if you walk it, it does slosh out, and then you have to once in a while fill it up again with warm water. It is a hassle, but it's worth the decontraction. And then later on, when your horse is fully decontracted, you can go to regular boots, to regular water. You don't have to, and regular soaking. You don't have to walk them in this anymore. Easy Boot makes very good products, however their soaking boot is a pain in the neck. It is very stiff, and if you live in a cold climate, it's almost impossible to get them on. So I would highly suggest that you use Davis boots instead of Easy boots, whatever they're named. Easy Care boots. That was all I can think of about soaking. No, it's not true. There are some areas that are very, very wet. Washington State comes to mind, maybe where Pamela lives, in Oregon as well. Carolina in Sweden in the winter, if the horses live outside. There are seasons or days where you don't have to soak. If you have a hoof spa like we do, and you feed in it, then you don't have to worry about that the horses get too wet. But if you don't have this and it's raining for days on end, you don't have to soak on top of it. So that's just so a disclaimer. Regionally, you have to be self-sufficient. You have to figure this out yourself. We can always talk in the question and answer session about this some more. So now that we have our hoofs nice and wet, we can talk about tools that we're going to use to trim these hoofs. And this is actually a huge chapter, and I hope I covered it all. Our most important tool for trimming is the knife. Not the rasp, it's the knife. And I prefer to work with a knife by the German company F. Dick. I like the Ascot model. It has, for me, for my size hand, the best handle. And what is really important, you have to have, in general, a left hand and a right hand knife. Not just a right hand knife if you're right-handed. There are many places in the hoof that you can trim better with a left hand knife, even if you hold it in your right hand. If you start out trimming, practice trimming with both hands. Trim the left side of the hoof with a left hand knife in your left hand, and the right side of the hoof with the right hand knife in your right hand. For me it's too late. I don't want to bother. Nothing's too late. I also could learn how to type. I choose not to spend time on this. I also choose not to spend time to trim with my left hand to practice this. I can rasp with my left hand, but I cannot use the knife with my left hand, which puts a lot of pressure on the right hand. If you trim a lot, that's definitely a consideration. to trim with both hands. That way you can kind of even the load. Here we have several knives. On the far left again here, this is the F-Dick Ascot model. Beside it is the F-Dick Master Grip. I think that's what it's named. The blade on both knives is the same. The handle is a little bit bigger, and I personally have a hard time holding this. My hands get very fast, very tired. But everybody is a little bit different, and I have some colleagues who swear that this helps them out greatly. And those who trim a lot, they sometimes in the middle of the workday switch knives, because then there are different pressure points on your hands. And that helps a little bit to even the workload. Here in the middle you have again an F-Dick Ascot knife. You always recognize an F-Dick knife. It has FD and a bow over it, and Germany printed on the hilt of the knife here, on this area. The bottom one, as you see, has a shorter blade, and it's much thicker. You have a lot more leverage with this. However, leverage is the only advantage. I find this a very cumbersome knife, but everybody is different. Please use what you want to use, and I think this on the top is a Hall knife, again short blade, that is a little bit more curved. The Dick knife has a fairly straight blade for a hoof knife. This is the only other knife that I use. It's a Mitchell knife from Tasmania. It's hand forged. It is a loop knife, and this loop is sharp all around. So you have in one knife a right hand and a left hand knife. The other side of the back side is just like in every regular knife, dull. The Mitchell knife, this Mitchell model has a very sharp point here, and with that you can trim out bar under the frog very well. However, the Mitchell knife is a bit expensive. It runs a minimum of $125 retail, and you also need with it a special sharpener, and that sharpener costs an extra $75. So you look at $200 for the set of this. And in a loop knife, usually the blade is very curved, so to make a really straight cut with it is not that easy. I also, for regular bar trimming, this point is too sharp, but it has some other good points, and I like it quite a lot, and I don't go anywhere without it. This is the famous Pete Ramey knife. Actually, it comes from a company in Georgia, and because he bragged so about it, I bought one. It has on the dull side a hoof pick that you can use. I really am not as enthusiastic about this. I can usually do a good job with the dull side of the crook in my F-Dick knife, and use that as a hoof pick. Plus I can just carry a hoof pick around. That's not a problem. It's very curved. Again, it has a fairly sharp top here where it is hard to trim a bar level and at its full width. And it doesn't matter how we sharpen it, it just is not sharp enough. It is, I think what happens is the steel here is too thick. And you just, I don't know, for me it's not sharp enough. End of story. If anybody would like to have one of those, I'll be glad to sell mine. This sets you back about $160, by the way, but you can have mine cheaper. So send me an email if you want to have it. Here we have 3 different knives just to show you a little bit what's possible and what's not. This on top is a double-bladed knife. It has on both sides, you can't see it very well, but it has on both sides a sharp blade. So you can use it for left hand trimming and right hand trimming, or left side and right side. However, the handle is curved just like a right hand trimming knife, so it's not so good to trim to the other side. And this is a particularly cheap knife, and the steel doesn't sharpen very well. The one in the middle has a gorgeous handle, but don't let this fool you. This is a knife from Pakistan. It is very cheap, and so is the steel on the blade, and it doesn't sharpen. No matter what you do, it just does not sharpen. It's absolutely worthless. And this here on the bottom is a frost knife. A lot of farriers trim with frost knives. If you like them, fine. I can't keep an edge on them long enough. They sharpen up very well, but it just doesn't stick. The frost knife you can get for about under $15. The FDIC knife is anywhere from $25 to $30. And then I told you what the loop knives are. And for a good knife, you have to invest about $30 US. When you have sharpened your knife often enough and used long enough, and it looks like this here on the right side, please throw it away. You're going to have an accident because eventually that blade breaks. And these are some old knives that I have, and this is the time when you have to part with it. Even with this one I want to part already on the left side. They're just in the workshop. I'm not using them anymore. When it comes to sharpening, there are really not many different things you can do to get a knife really sharp. We suggest that you get a FDIC diamond coated sharpener around $45 to $50 if you can find it. If you would like to have one and you cannot find it, email me and I can eventually make a mass order. My wholesale supplier does carry them. I have not been able to find any recently to buy. I did a search because I wanted to see what others sell them for, but I wasn't lucky. This is by far the best sharpener. There are other sharpeners that are oval and similar to this. They don't last quite as long, but they will do the trick as well. The one on the bottom is the Istor Swiss sharpener. It has a square boxed stone in it that really takes a lot of metal off. It is very good if you have nicks in your blade to even this out. Takes care of things very quickly, and I'll show you another thing later on in the sharpening part of this session what you can do with it. It fits easily in your pocket. It's a good little sharpener to carry around with you. I am pretty sure the horseshoof.com carries it. Finally, rasps. There is almost a religion about rasps, it seems. whoever likes his rasp is saying this is the only one they will ever use. So in general, we found that the Hella, the Balota, or the Valor Bee Spirit are the best ones. The Valor Bee Spirit has just come out a few months ago, and it comes from Switzerland, and this is the one that is that the pictures are made of here. I really like this rasp. It has a lot of bite, and the fine side, that's the picture on the top, has a different configuration than all the other rasps, and it makes a wonderful smooth finish. The Valor Bee rasp is more expensive. It runs around $30, whereas the Hella and the Balota are in the low 20s. And it has so much bite that some people in the beginning don't like it. If you rasp with a very sharp rasp, you have to let the rasp do the job and not push down on it, or it grabs so into the hoof that you cannot push it anymore. So you just have to be a little gentle with it, and you will get the hang of it. The other thing about the Valor Bee is it lasts longer than the others. There are also the Simmons. Then there is the Simmons Blackmaster. I'm not sure if they got bought out by Hella or Simmons bought out Balota. There was something going on like that. And then there is the Safe Edge. One of our colleagues swears that only the Safe Edge will do. Okay, everybody can rasp with what they like to use. However, if you treat your rasp well, it will last a little bit longer. Put it in a sleeve. These sleeves are available everywhere where rasps are sold. There's rasp covers sold. If you don't use it a lot, give it a good spray with a with WD-40 or some kind of thin oil so that it stays sharp and doesn't rust. Rust definitely eats on it, and what eats most on it is when you throw it down. If you put your rasp on the hoof stand, some hoof stands have magnets on the side. If you put it on the hoof stand or on your toolbox where there is a magnet, put it with the fine side on the magnet so that the teeth of the coarse side don't break off. We recommend wearing gloves because we also recommend having very sharp knives. And sometimes we have seen it that there was blood dripping, and we couldn't figure out where the blood came from. It usually comes from ourselves. Hopefully it comes from ourselves. But better to be careful. And so a lot of trimmers wear leather gloves. I personally find that leather gloves get too slick, and then you have to hold on to the slickness of the gloves as well. These Atlas gloves work very well. The green one on the left is the summer glove. It's a little thinner. The right one has something almost like a fleece inside. It keeps you cozy warm, but it also gives you a lot of cushioning. I trim with the gray Atlas glove. It's a thermal glove. It's named the thermal glove. Year-round, and you can get them by the dozen at palmflex.com, and they run you about $5 including shipping a pair. So if they are wore out, just throw them away. They also wash fantastic. So if they just get dirty and sweaty, you can wash them once in a while, and they're like new. Something I just bought recently is this arm sleeve also from Palmflex. You can also get arm guards, arm sleeves in leather. They usually are very hot, and not all of them stay up very well. This one I tested. I just bought it and wore it just recently. In the heat it is fantastic. It doesn't get any hotter than it already is, and it really gives you a good, safe cover over your arm, so when you slip with your knife that you don't mutilate your left arm. Most trimmers have some scars on their left arm. If they are right-handed trimmers. If they're left-handed trimmers, the scars are on the right arm. This is something that will become eventually important when you have not yet learned to see a 30-degree hairline. We would like for the hairline to rise at 30 degrees from back to front. And on this template you have all the angles that are kind of sort of important. And you have the, let me just write it in, you have the 45-degree angle here. You have the 55-degree angle, that is this line. And then you have this angle, which is the 95 degrees. And you have this angle, which is the 105-degree angle. And the other things you have here the lower line is 3 centimeters from the ground, and this is 3.5 centimeters from the ground. So you have all these different angles on this template, and the template is available at thehorseshoof.com. You can just download it, and then you buy a piece of plexiglass, cut it to the size that they say. I think it's 8 by 8 inches, and cut it to that size, and then draw or etch these lines on it, and it will help you greatly to see if your horse has a correct hairline or not, because you can see through it and compare those lines to your horse's hoof. Those, eventually one would hope that you would learn to see the angles, but in the beginning that's really helpful. Most trimmers prefer to wear an apron. It keeps your legs dry. It keeps your jeans in, or your pants in, reasonably good repair, whereas if you use if you lay the horse or hold the horse on your pants, then the pants wear out much faster. It also is a good place to have your knives. A good apron for a barefoot trimmer has at least 2 knives, one on the right side, one on the left side. I put this one out here. This is the one I wear, not in these colors. They make many different colors, but if you go to eBay and look for the member ID RJ Shoeing, they have these aprons for around $60, and I thought this was a very good price. They wash fantastic, they clean up good, and they have real good hardware on them, buckles on the leg straps and buckles on the waist. And to me this is important. They also have some fast release snaps, which is also important should the impossible happen and the horse jumps and catches you between the back and the apron. So always trying to be safe there. We have different hoof stands. Not everyone uses a hoof stand. I find it much easier on the back to use a hoof stand. However, you have one more piece of equipment to lug around. I find it worth it. We have found that these two kinds of hoof stands are the best the best ones. The one on the left is the hoof jack. It comes with two posts, a post to set the hoof on when you rasp from the top, and another post where you can lay the hoof into this cradle, and it allows you to trim the sole without having to hold the foot. And the horses get really quick used to it, and it's especially helpful for those horses that like to use you as a hoof stand, and it makes it a little bit easier on your back. Then Hoof It produces this one where the cradle and the post are in the same contraption. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to fiddle around, to rasp around this. When the hoof is sitting here on top, you run with the rasp a little bit into this if you're not careful, but I guess people have learned to work around this. If this appeals to you more than lugging two posts around, then this is your stand. Otherwise, the hoof jack does a splendid job. Around $160 to $200 for each one of them. By the way, the hoof jack also comes in 3 different sizes: mini, regular, and draft horse. If you trim a lot of minis, like Carolina in Sweden does, then the mini stand is probably your best bet. But then again, for minis, you really don't need a hoof stand. Another important thing, nippers. There is a hoof school out there that uses a lot of nippers. We in general use nippers only for grossly overgrown feet, and for that reason alone, if you trim commercially, you have to have some in your tool arsenal, and it better be good nippers. These here are GEs. They are the only pair I have, and with a little bit luck, they will be the only pair I ever have. They can be resharpened. There's a way to resharpen them, and I also have something on here that's a nipper spring that allows me to work these nippers with one hand. I prefer to have the long-handled nippers because they give you more leverage when you really need it. Some people prefer the shorter ones. The shorter ones, I believe, 12 inches. The regular size is 14 inches. Something in that neighborhood. I just got some pictures here of these. These are compound nippers, and you don't have to have any physical power to use them, just tool skill, and they have enough leverage to kind of nip through everything. They are a little bit more expensive, but if that's important to you, that you can work this easier, then that may be the nipper for you. Once in a while, you have to take a shoe off of a horse, and then please do not use your nippers. I will in a later lecture explain to you how to take shoes off, but please do not use your nippers for taking the shoes off. You will ruin them. Good nippers have a really sharp edge, and that sharp edge goes to pot on the steel shoe. So go to the hardware store and buy just a regular pair of shoe pullers. and you can also get them from a Farrier Supply. They should run around $25 or so. They're not that expensive. This little tool, however, is already expensive again. These are nail pullers, and what you do is you set them on the top of the nail and just pull the nail out. They are very handy, and fortunately somebody gave me these, and it doesn't matter that they are a little bit old. They do a great job. Another way to use nipper to get the shoes off, what I do usually is I rasp the nail holes off, but you also can use a tool like this and undercut the clinch and just go with the edge here under the clinch, and then you need a hammer to open the clinch. And with the clinch is that piece of nail that is bent around coming out of the top of the hoof wall. So you need to open this before you can take the shoe off. Or you need to rasp the nail head off. And on your rasp, let me just go back to this real quick. I didn't think about that earlier. On your rasp you have a serrated side here. Every rasp has this. Both sides are serrated. And this is where you can rasp the nail heads off with, so that you don't mutilate your good rasp on the nail heads. That's what this side is serrated for, and it works. Organizing tools is reasonably important, especially for knives and rasps, so they don't get banged around. And this is, a colleague has found this. It's a cover for a 5-gallon bucket, and that way you can carry the bucket around and everything is in one place. I think this works excellent. We recommend that you have a rasp handle on your rasp, and you saw that in the picture earlier. What he does is he just sticks a golf ball on the end of the rasp, just so you don't hurt yourself with that sharp end. So you see that here, that works very well as well. And he puts his apron in, and his nippers and the rasps, and then all the knives and other sundries, the sharpeners, some scissors, are here on the outside. Very well organized. Then he has on the back of his Jeep a little platform, and on that platform sits a toolbox. And he has all his, quote, stinky, unquote, tools in that toolbox. And that way it stays pretty organized. And that's an easy way to travel. I use a little canvas chisel bag where I put my knives in. This is fairly easy to sort them and to keep them secure and in good shape. This one is the one I actually use, and have my sharpener and my knives in there, and I keep my rasp in there, even throw my glasses in a case in there, and my gloves, and then I roll it all up and it's all in one place. And when I get to the destination where I'm trimming, I can just roll it out and grab my knives and can start. Some people like to trim sitting down, and this is good for your back if the horse allows you this, and most horses are fine with it. I have seldom had a horse that was not fine with it, or I wasn't comfortable because the horse was jumping around quite a bit. Then you can't sit, but I find it important that you sit on something that rolls and not on something that's stationary like a crate. or an upside down bucket, because you can't get away when the horse jumps. And with stools like this, you find them under mechanic stool or mechanic chair at tool suppliers. Walmart has one that's very simple. Make sure that the wheels are big enough, and certainly you can only use those if you have a hard, smooth surface. One other item that I carry, actually I carry one more than this, is a halter, a rope halter, and a lead rope. If there's nobody who holds the horse, that way I can communicate with the horse. I can just lay the lead rope on my lap, and the horse doesn't just walk away. And for me this works, and I can manage the horse if I have to. You have a choice. You can either buy the one from Pirelli.com, and then you get a nice little stamp on the popper of the lead line that says Pirelli, or you can buy it for half the price at silverdollarqh.com. The material is the same. They are equally well made from Silver Dollar QH. And the other thing that I want to talk about before we go to power tools is I also carry in the summertime a fly sheet. And depending where you trim and if you have flies, but flies can be very annoying to the horse, and a horse that's constantly banging around because it tries to get flies may even injure you, but is a nuisance at best. And that can be avoided with a fly sheet. I found one that closes in the front but has no belly straps, and that way you can just lay it over the horse, and when you're done you take it off again. That works very well. Some people work with nippers. I prefer to work with power tools, with a grinder, an angle grinder, and the angle grinder allows me to take either very little horn off or a lot of horn off, depending how much pressure you put on it. This here that you see here is a DeWalt with a battery pack. It's cordless. It's very powerful. It is a bit heavy. It weighs about 7.5 pounds with the battery, and that makes it a little awkward. And this here is the underside, just to show you how the blade looks. But in the next picture we have the blades extra. They're not blades, they're flap discs. And I carry 3 batteries. A battery lasts me usually a horse and a half. In cold weather they last a little shorter. In hot weather a little bit longer. I also, and this here is the flap disc. You need a 40 grit or grain. 20 is too coarse, 60 and 80 is too smooth. 40 is the right size, and you can either use, on the DeWalt, you can either use a 4.5-inch disc that's depicted here, or you can use a 4-inch disc. The 1/2-inch makes a huge difference. The 4-inch disc is much easier to manage. It doesn't, you can get a little bit better into the hoof. The angle grinder does not heat the hoof up, and once you have learned to work with it, it really is, especially on very dry hoofs, a godsend. You can take the top of your trimming surface off, and then you can trim the rest by hand. Once you're through the top layer, usually it goes a lot easier. So I'm rather fond of my grinder. However, you need to be able to trim horses with hand tools, because there are some horses that will not allow you to use the grinder, and there are some people that can't get them trained, and I'm not a trainer for horses like this. I just trim them then with hand tools. Another grinder, this one comes from SoftTouchNaturalHorseCare.com. This is a corded one. It only supports a 4-inch blade, which is fine. It has a modified handle. Phil Morara in California sells them, and it does a very good job. You just have to have a plug somewhere. I have one in the barn where I trim usually at home. On the road I use my DeWalt. And I do not trim exclusively with the grinder. It just makes beautiful round edges, and it saves me some strain on the arms, no matter how heavy it is. I can usually trim a couple more horses if I use the grinder versus hand tools per day. And finally, we have this little light, and this is something that's very optional, but I like to have it. I carry it around, and I treat the acupuncture main points, the main acupuncture points of the horse. This light comes with instructions where to use it and how to use it. It's available at soundhorse-solutions.net, and what it does, it relieves some pain in the ligament attachments, and gets the energy flowing through the horse again. You can use it on yourself too. You can get it with either the equine description or the human description, or both. It comes in very handy when a horse can't stand and you have no other tools available to yourself, like Reiki or any other healing or pain relief methods. Then this light will do the trick. It runs around $100, and I put the website on here so that you can copy that out. And then I like to take pictures of the horse's hoof, and I have posted on the Yahoo group already a file how to take pictures so they can be easily read by others. And for picture taking, I like the Nikon Coolpix S4. There's also Nikon Coolpix S10. It's way more expensive because the S4 I don't think is on the market anymore officially, but you can get it at eBay without a problem. And it runs anywhere from $50 to $250 on eBay. Does a remarkable job. Any camera where you can swivel the readout, the LED, will do, where you can swivel the lens, so that you can lay this camera flat on the ground and see exactly the picture you're taking. This really helps. And I have the second or third already, because I've taken so many pictures, and once in a while even they break. No big breaks, little breaks, like the flash broke on one, and the other one didn't let me go from macro to micro, but they do a good job. So I know this is a long lecture today, but we still have to talk about how to sharpen your hoof knife. Sharpening your hoof knife is a very important tool task that you need to learn if you want to trim successfully. You cannot trim with dull knives. And I don't know how many people have told me since I'm teaching that their knives are sharp, and all I can do when I touch them is I can laugh. The knives are not sharp. And today I don't touch the knives anymore. I just hand them my own knife and say, trim with this one. And they go, oh my God, this is so much sharper. Sit at the kitchen table and sharpen your knives till you have it down to a science, till your knives are razor sharp. My husband's criterion for a sharp knife is if he can slice it through a newspaper, through a page of a newspaper, with just using the weight of the knife and not holding the paper up. So, and that's a pretty good criterion. I have always had sharp knives, thanks to the husband I have for 27 years. The sharpness we use is the F-Dick sharpener, as I had mentioned earlier. If you want to have one, I can order you one. Or the Isto Swiss sharpener. And then some people recommend also these little pen sharpeners. They are pretty good for the hook. The F-Dick sharpener works the hook as well. You have to have a sharpener and not a file. A file is too coarse for your hoof knife, and you will get nicks into the blade. My husband also uses a grinding wheel, a bench grinder, and for the backside of the knife he uses the cloth side of the bench grinder to make this very smooth. When you start sharpening your knife, most knives run the blade, the cutting edge, at a 20-degree angle, and that is the angle you want to sharpen to. Make sure you have a hard surface that you can set the knife on. You can also lay it down. That really makes no difference. Whatever you can do, the best. And try to sharpen it at a 20-degree angle. If you say, oh my God, how do I know what's a 20-degree angle? Envision 90 degrees, then take half of that, which is 45, and then take half of that again and a little less, and then you are at about 20. This here is the blade. This is your cutting edge at a 20-degree angle. This would be 45. This would be 90. This would be about 45, and this would be 90. So 20, about. Then you take this 20 and you run the sharpener in slightly circular motion over this cutting edge all the way into the hook, and then you repeat this going backwards. Once you go, don't just go towards the hook, also on the way home do the same thing, angling the sharpener. I have no picture of this, but angle the sharpener the other way around and sharpen it going towards the handle. That way, if you have any striations on the knife, it will be in the direction that you are trimming with this knife later on, and that's very important. So you don't make it more dull. Here is a picture series from Bill Ramsey in New Zealand, how he uses his little pen sharpener. It's also a diamond sharpener, by the way. And he uses this the same way. You see, he goes first down, away from the handle, and then he comes back up the handle. If you make your diamond sharpener wet while you use it, it will last you a little bit longer, and it makes for a finer sharpening. Then when you have the front finished, you feel with your thumb over the back and feel if there are any burrs on the back of the knife, because this is what doesn't allow you to have a sharp knife. When you feel the burrs, you have options. You can either run then the knife with the backside over the bench grinder, which makes for a pretty smooth and very sharp finish, or you can use the ISTOR sharpener and just take that burr off ever so lightly. Don't give this any pressure. And when the burr is off, then you check again if your knife feels sharp. You can feel a sharp knife. Don't feel it too hard. Or you can do this famous Charles Garner newspaper test. And you see he's not holding it really tight here. He's just slicing ever so lightly through this. And that's his justification for when I say my knives are not sharp. He says, yes, they are. You don't have enough muscle. They are sharp. So that's basically it for today. It went a little bit over. I am going to invite questions now that you may have. Let's talk about whatever comes up. And just raise your hand and I unmute you. Yes, Bob.
I have a question on your hoof spas, in West Nile. How long do you leave your water sitting in those spas?
Till it stinks. I'm sorry.
What about the mosquitoes?
I put a mosquito deterrent in it. It's all natural. It comes from Abico, abico.com. It's a granulate. They also sell mosquito dunks. I use the same thing, not as a dunk, because my dogs go fishing after the dunks. I use a good tablespoon in my spas. In a bigger one you would need to use 2 tablespoons, and that takes care of. What that does is it doesn't allow the larvae to develop. And it's absolutely harmless to the horses. It's an all-natural product. You can also throw it in all ponds and everywhere where you have water standing.
What about your water trough?
Hopefully there are no mosquitoes breeding in your water trough. Hopefully you change the water there a little bit more often.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't use water troughs. I have automatic waterers.
Oh, okay.
I find this a little bit more sanitary, and as hot as it is here in South Carolina, the water in the water trough is by 5 o'clock in the evening hot, and then they don't like to drink this, whereas if I use a automatic waterer, they splash the warm water out and cold water runs after.
Oh, handy.
Yeah, so it's a thought.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Pamela, you promised me a question every time. Any question. Doesn't have to be tool, soaking, or sharpening related. Yes, Jonathan.
We have some horses where some of the dirt and the sand is actually pushing up inside the hoof wall, in cracks in the hoof wall. Mm-hmm. Do you understand that?
Yep.
Okay, what do we do about that? They're getting pretty deep.
Yeah, what you have to do in this case, and this is actually supposed to come way later,
Right.
you have to trim the sole away.
Oh, really?
Right where you have that, yeah, what happens is you have two choices. You can either trim the wall away so that
Right.
it doesn't pack in and let the wall grow in with a better connection, or you trim the sole away where the dirt packs. You
Okay.
lower the sole there a little bit, and that way the dirt cannot pack in there and cannot push the wall away from the sole.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah,
It's just
that
a little
works.
bit a different approach, but that usually works for me very well.
Okay. And the other thing is, we were getting where on the white line along the toe, it looked like there was some bruising there, but just with one or two files, it would go away. So there's some temporary like pinkness, like bruising. Is that bruising, or do you know what it is?
Yeah, it is bruising, most likely, and it's most likely very old because
Okay.
in all likelihood, and I'm careful here because I don't see it and I'm just guessing.
Right.
In all likelihood, it has grown all the way from the coronet band down.
Oh,
And
wow.
and all they have to do is they have to be for, a couple of weeks a little bit heel high, and for a couple of weeks they are landing toe first instead of heel first, and you get that kind of bruising. It is
Okay.
actually the laminae are bleeding into the connection, and then you
Okay.
see it when it has grown all the way down. And that this is also why farriers usually do not make the connection here between that bruising and lameness. They tell you, oh, this is nothing, we see this all the time, that doesn't mean anything. But that horse had some problems 6, 8 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah?
Perfect. That's it. Thank you.
Okay? You're welcome. Pamela.
Kind of an add-on to John's question there. I do have a horse that I'm trimming that's fairly separated at the toe area. He has a very shallow foot, and he tends to want to collapse to the inside. The sole is not well connected at the toe, and you kind of form that little ridge under the sole and the toe. Would it be better to take the toe wall back as far as I could, or would it be better to trim out a little more of the sole on the toe area to kind of keep crap from getting behind there?
That's a difficult question, Pamela, and the way I usually answer this is send me a picture.
Okay. My choices so far, because he's so flat, is I'm leaving more of the toe,
Yeah?
because I feel if I take that off, it just puts his coffin real closer to the ground.
Correct.
But I will snap a picture. I'm going to go see him in 2 weeks, and I'll snap a picture of it.
But then the next question is, do you have enough sole to alleviate the problem there in the front? You can play a little bit around with this. You're most likely not going to trim to blood. Um, uh, careful exploration.
Yes.
I name this exploratory surgery.
Don't tell that to the owner.
No, but when you go there next time, make a picture before and what you did with it after,
Okay.
and then we'll see, and send them to me, and then we can talk about it. Okay?
And I have one more question too
Sure.
on another horse that I'm doing. She's a great big 16 three-hand mare. She started out with one clubby foot and one underslung foot. She's doing very, very well. We've been trimming her since December. The clubby foot's coming down. She's moving well. She's popped out a couple abscesses. But the owner's thinking of bleeding her like within the next month. Is this a wise idea for this mare now, or should she wait another year?
This breeding thing is that always puts me in a foul mood. We have already so many horses.
Yes, true.
That's, you know,
I'm concerned about more weight on her feet.
yeah,
And
but
to,
again, it depends how I'm the, you know, with the clubby foot, I'm not even so concerned. I'm more concerned usually with the underslung foot in a high-low syndrome, because the underslung situation is much harder to get a grip on, and it's actually almost more detrimental to the horse's health. The clubby foot, you just, if you trim it regularly and always a little bit more, it will come down. The underslung, you know, Pam, I can't answer this. I don't want you to go to the owner and say Claudia said not to breed this horse, but if she's gung-ho on breeding the horse, it's already June, it's almost too late, then if you can persuade her to wait another year, maybe things change and she won't breed her at all. How old is the horse?
9.
Yeah, well, then she can wait another year. Is she in excellent health except for those 2 feet?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, well,
And moving well. Actually, the underslung foot isn't near as bad as I've seen on other horses.
Okay.
And it's actually coming up quite well.
good.
So
Well,
I don't have any concerns about it, but I was just wondering if maybe someone had more expertise than me.
no, from the foot perspective, there's no reason not to breed her. From the horse population perspective, there's every reason to not breed her unless she is a particular outstanding specimen.
Okay,
Okay?
that sounds good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Pam. Denise!
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you for sending me a reply about Marinara's feet.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I heard nothing from anybody. Nobody responded. Nobody said this is utter nonsense. So, did it help?
It has. The obvious question, lots of my problems obviously needs more toe height.
Yeah.
Does that resolve with lowering the heels that tad more and just letting the toes grow out a bit, or?
This is always something. In general, the answer would be yes.